Welcome back to your Toeic speaking class. Before we move on to the next lesson, we're going to review first what we discussed in the previous video. And one of them is the content of the Toeic speaking test. In the Toeic speaking test, you are going to complete 11 tasks within 20 minutes. And question 1 to 2, task is to read the text aloud. Question 3, you're supposed to describe the picture. For questions 4 to 6, you have to respond to questions. For questions 7 to 9, you're going to respond to questions using information provided. For question 10, you're going to pose a suggestion. And for question 11, you're going to express your opinion. In each of the questions, you are given the evaluation criteria that you can find on this site. Now, in the previous video, we listened to some sample responses of some test takers, and we also talked about the analytical scoring guidelines. Just a quick review for pronunciation. The score of 3 means pronunciation is highly intelligible with the response include minor lapses and or other language influence. 2. Pronunciation is generally intelligible, though it includes some lapses and or other language influence. 1. Pronunciation may be intelligible at times, but significant other language influence interferes with the proper delivery of the text. And 0. If there is no response, or response is completely unconnected to the stimulus. In questions 1 and 2, you are also going to be scored on your intonation express. And the analytical scoring guidelines is this. 3. Speaker's use of emphases, pauses, and rising and falling pitch is appropriate to the text. 2. The speaker's use of emphases, pauses, and rising and falling pitch is generally appropriate to the text, though the response includes some lapses and or moderate other language influence. 1. Speaker's use of emphases, pauses, and rising and falling pitch is not appropriate and the response includes significant other language influence. And 0. If there is no response or response is completely unconnected to the stimulus. Now remember that in questions 1 and 2, you're going to read a paragraph of 40 to 60 words to read aloud. You're also given 45 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to read the text aloud. And again, you will be scored on your pronunciation and the intonation and stress of your sentences. Now let's start the lesson proper. In Unit 1, Focus B, Part A, we're going to study intonation in lists and questions. Part A. In this part of the test, the text you read aloud will include a list. Make sure you're familiar with the common intonation pattern for lists. Listen to the sentence and sections and repeat each part. Try to imitate the intonation used by the speaker.
Unit 1, Test Tactic A.
I'd like some apples, some plums, and a melon.
Remember that all texts in questions 1 and 2 will include a set of things in a list. Learn the common intonation pattern that lists follow. If there are 3 or more items in the list, the first ones will have an upward intonation after the main stress to indicate that there is more to come. And the last item in the list will go down after the last stressed syllable to indicate the end of the list. So in this example, let's listen to it again.
Unit 1, Test Tactic A.
I'd like some apples, some plums, and a melon.
Alright, so it's the up, up, down intonation. I'd like some apples, some plums, and a melon. Now let's move on to Part B. In pairs, you can read the sentences 1 to 4 aloud and mark the intonation of the words in bold. Then listen, repeat, and check your answers.
Unit 1, Test Tactic B. 1.
Appointments may be made on the 3rd, 10th, and 21st of each month.
2,
Destinations include Greece, Turkey, and Egypt.
3,
You will be introduced to the president, the vice president, and the senior manager.
4,
You will have to pay for food, accommodation, and transportation.
If you notice in those 4 sentences, the list or reading the list follow the up, up, down intonation. Now, if you're my student, you may check your Google Classroom to check the file for this activity. And then if not, you can find a partner and do this activity. First, you can tell 3 things you have bought recently. Second, talk about 3 places you have been on holiday. And last, talk about 3 foods you have eaten in the last week. Part C. In this part of the test, the text you read aloud may include a question. Make sure you're familiar with the common intonation patterns for questions. Listen to 1 and 2 and repeat each, and then try to imitate the intonation used by the speaker.
Unit 1, Test Tactic C. 1,
May I interest you in these products?
2,
Who will volunteer?
Now, if the question begins with an auxiliary word, such as do, did, is, are, was, or were, or a modal word like may, can, could, would, and more, there will be an upward intonation in the last syllable of the last word. Just like in the example, may I interest you in these products? So the intonation goes up. If the question begins with a WH word, such as which, where, what, why, when, or how, the intonation will go down on the last syllable of the last word, like who will volunteer. Let's listen to it again.
Unit 1, Test Tactic C. 1,
May I interest you in these products?
2,
Who will volunteer?
Now, if you want to practice, you may repeat part C. Try to imitate the intonation used by the speaker. You listen to it and then repeat. Part D. In pairs, or you can find a partner, you read sentences 1 to 3 out loud and mark the intonation of the key of the words in bold. Then listen, repeat, and check your answers.
Unit 1, Test Tactic D. 1,
Can I make an announcement?
2,
Where can you go for big savings?
3,
Does anyone have any questions?
If you are my student, you can visit your Google Classroom again and check for the file. Or if not, you can find a partner and talk about the following. You can ask 3 questions about their family, ask 3 questions about their hobbies, and ask 3 questions about their job. Part E. Prepare the announcement below by following steps 1 to 5. Highlight pauses, emphasize words, and intonation patterns on the text itself. When you're doing questions 1 and 2, remember that you have to prepare for this task. It is good practice to read through text in your preparation time, just 4 to 5 seconds, and you have to make mental notes to help you when reading aloud. The first step that you can do is to ask this question. Are there any sounds that you may find difficult to pronounce? In this paragraph, it could be unfortunately, personal, Wednesday, or some other words. Second, practice the numbers of syllables, especially in longer words. In this paragraph, we have, unfortunately, introduction, inconvenient. So you may find long words and then practice them. Third, note which words make up the list and remind yourself of the up, up, down intonation you need to use. In this paragraph, the list is Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. 4. Are there any questions? What sort of intonation do they require? Remember that auxiliary modal rising intonation or WH word falling intonation is used. Next, relax, speak slowly and clearly. Make sure that you pause where necessary and that your voice goes up and down appropriately.